Hello, class. This is the lecture for chapter 70. I'm going to open the PowerPoint right now. Okay, the chapter name is little glitch, be patient. Chapter 70 is reality shows, Adams and contemporary opera. Key points. Operatic composers sometimes choose historical topics seeking to convey emotional truths through semi-fictional accounts of past events. American composer John Adams' eclectic approach. Do you know what eclectic means? Echo. Define eclectic.
As an adjective, eclectic is usually defined as selecting or choosing from various sources. As a noun, eclectic is usually defined as a person who follows an eclectic method, as in philosophy or architecture. For more, ask me to give you more definitions for eclectic.
So there you go. American composer John Adams' eclectic approach combines elements of minimalism with traits of neo-romanticism, forging a post-minimalistic style in his recent opera, Dr. Atomic. And we're going to watch some excerpts of that and talk about his opera. So here we have history, actual events that are presented in an opera. And he uses modern day historical events. So John Adams, who's John Adams? Born in 1947, a very important American composer, quite prolific and popular. I think the most important thing here is, well, it says he's a versatile post-minimalist, whatever that is. We'll try and nail that down. And he's won lots of prizes and great successes. But his style shows elements of neo-romanticism. What is that? Minimalism. What is that? He has accessible melodies. I think we know what that is. Expressive harmonies. We know what that is. Wide appeal means he's popular. And he has written stage works, chamber music, vocal works, tape, and electronic works. Here is an example of minimalism and an example of neo-romanticism. And we're going to study Steve Reich in a later chapter. But for now, just a few seconds of an example of minimalism. This is a piece by Steve Reich called Double Sextet. This is the movement number 1. Steve Reich made his whole career writing minimalist music. And of course, it evolved somewhat, but that's an example of minimalism. Now, here's an example of neo-romanticism, and this is by David Del Tredici from 1937 when he was born. And the piece is called Number 1, My Goldberg. So you get a taste of what neo-romanticism is. You get the idea. Note that anytime you have neo, it means new, and it's there are elements of Romanticism from the 19th century with the lush harmonies and long melodies. And so that's an example of neo-romanticism. And the minimalism has this rhythm that is this pulsation that is typical of minimalism, where the harmonies and the music changes gradually, and the melody is not so important as the involvement of the pulsing. Okay, so here is John Adams, handsome man, well on to do his career, and he was born in 1947. But these are works by John Adams. A number of operas. We're going to sample this one from 2005 called Dr. Atomic, and just to show you the immense amount of works that he's written. And it's all very accessible and popular music that people enjoy and actually are entertained by the music. These are pieces by for voice and orchestra that he's written. Other works, just lots of music. Some really cool piano music. I'll play some John Adams piano music when we were in the section, the unit on piano. He's written music for films, right? So what is Dr. Atomic, the piece we're going to sample? It's an opera, right, in 2 acts about Robert Oppenheimer. Again, this chapter called Reality Shows because his operas are based on actual historic events. And this opera, Dr. Atomic, is about Robert Oppenheimer. Maybe you don't know who he was, and it involved with the Manhattan Project and the creation and testing of the first atomic bomb. Do you know where that took place? Up in Los Alamos, New Mexico, right? Just north of Santa Fe. The libretto, the storyline of Dr. Atomic, was written by Peter Sellers, and Sellers, it draws on original source material, and he did interviews and gathered actual information to include in the opera. The opera takes place in June and July 1945, mainly over the last few hours before the first atomic bomb explodes at the test site in New Mexico. Do you know where that is? In Alamogordo, actually. And the atomic bomb was dropped in 4 different places in the world, if I can remember. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Bikini Island, I think, and in Alamogordo. And once a year, you can take a trip to the site where the bomb was detonated in Alamogordo. And remnants of the effects of the atomic bomb are clearly seen. Apparently, haven't been there. And so the characters in the opera are Dr. Oppenheimer and his wife and other engineers. And if you know anything about this project, it was highly secret. And there was a dilemma, because if this was the right thing to do to make such a powerful bomb that was going to kill so many people. And so that's what the opera is about, this dilemma. And we're going to sample 2 songs from the opera, Batter My Heart and At the Sight of This. I want to play, and this is from the opera, a stage scene, but I want to play a story from the New York Times that describes a little bit of it, and you'll get a taste of it. So here we go.
The creation of the first nuclear bomb by scientist J. Robert Oppenheimer is the unlikely inspiration for Dr. Atomic, an opera written by Pulitzer Prize-winning composer John Adams in 2005.
The atomic bomb really is, in a sense, the constellation of everything America stands for, both what makes us great and what makes us a problem in the world.
in a new production that will premiere at the Met on October 13th. Dr. Atomic tracks the countdown to the explosion of the first atomic bomb near Los Alamos, New Mexico, home to the Manhattan Project in the summer of 1945. As an opera composer, Adams is often drawn to historical moments that pinpoint moral complexities.
Dr. Atomic represents American ingenuity, principles of freedom, the fight against fascism, but also the onerous responsibility of having been the first country to develop a weapon that can destroy all human life, and also having this terrible guilt of being the only country that's actually used a nuclear weapon.
Baritone Gerald Finley returns to the title role he performed at the opera's 2005 premiere in San Francisco. The Met's new production is helmed by first-time opera director Penny Woolcock.
Coming from a film background, one of the great challenges for me was having to make everything happen inside a box. And I found the constraints both kind of incredibly frustrating initially and fantastically liberating. And on stage, in a way, you can be kind of deliriously inventive. And we started with certain images of some cloth mountains from a Polish production in the 60s. And I had an image of a sculpture made by an English sculptor called Cornelia Parker. It's called Cold Dark Matter, where she blew up a shed and then collected all the little bits and pieces that had lain around and suspended them from wires. So there was this sense of seeing something in the middle of an explosion.
The restaging features sets designed by Julian Crouch that mirror the periodic table of elements, as well as video projections and animations of scientific equations.
I know absolutely nothing about science, so I've put several things in there to help sort of imbecilic people like me and understand things better, I suppose.
Woolcock, who has never directed for the stage, was inspired by the scientists at the heart of the story.
One of the things was discovering how interesting these people were and how exciting this project was. And there was a huge amount of debate about the ethics of what they were doing.
The libretto, by Peter Sellers, is a collage from documentary sources, history books, and poetry.
Kitty Oppenheimer, who is the voice of the feminine moral consciousness, largely speaks through the poetry of Muriel Rukeyser, who was a mid-century American poet.
But despite all the changes in the production, the opera's center remains the bomb and its impact.
One of the amazing things that I think Dr. Atomic does is to make you think about something that you believe that you understood before. And I think that's one of the great things about music, is that there's a kind of beauty in the sort of horror of it as well.
batter my heart. 3% God for you as yet, but knock, breathe, knock, breathe, knock, breathe, shine, and seek to mend. Batter my heart, 3% God, that I may rise and stand, or throw me and bend your force to break, low, break, low, break, blow, burn, and make me new. Batter my heart, 3% God, for you as yet, but knock, breathe, knock, breathe, knock, breathe, shine, and seek to mend. Batter my heart, 3% God, that I may rise and stand, or throw me and bend your force to break, low, break, low, break, blow, burn, and make me new. I'm like a new set town to another tune. Labor to admit you, but to no end. Reason, your viceroy needs, we should defend what is captive and who's weak or untrue. Yet dearly I love you, and would be loved fain, but betrothed unto your enemy. Divorce me, untie, or break that knot again. Take me to you, imprison me, for I, except you enthrall me, never shall be free, nor ever chaste, except you ravish me.
You can certainly hear in the vocal part the neo-romantic style, and then when the orchestra plays, you can hear the minimalist style. Here is the next example from the textbook from John Adams' Dr. Atomic Opera. This Act 2, Scene 3, the chorus sings "At the Sight of This." a very powerful piece of music. It makes you consider how many people died at Hiroshima and Nagasaki in a flash of light. So this concludes chapter 70, the music examples from the textbook on John Adams.